All right, we've returned from executive session and we're returning to open session. And we have approval of the October 5th open session meeting minutes. Do I hear?
Well, was there a question on the minutes about the time for the vote for the town voting? That didn't get shortened, did it? Or was that me totally mishearing things?
No, when we talked about the Berlin-Boylston agreement, I pointed out that the Berlin-Boylston agreement said that our town election would be 7.5 hours long, closing at 8 o'clock. And I don't think that got reflected in the minutes.
And also the issue of the clerk in the special legislation.
Right.
Which I have not heard on either of those. I have not heard on either of those issues yet.
Did I not? Chris, I incorporated your two comments into a draft set of minutes that went into the folder tonight.
Okay.
Right, the one that says Keith edits.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought I pushed that to everyone. I said, don't respond to this tonight, discuss it.
Yep.
Don't discuss it till tonight, but.
I didn't see that in the folder, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it's called Keith edits, 10-5-20
Yes.
minutes.
So
and in red, it has the changes that were raised.
Okay, and they're satisfactory? I don't have them in front of me.
They are to me, yes.
Okay. All right. Then with those changes, is there anything else? Any other comments or questions on the minutes?
The only comments I have, and it's just really follow-up from the meeting, was the board's discussion on Halloween and COVID protocols. I did email Berlin Memorial School Principal John Campbell today to convey the board's vote from last week to discourage the higher risk activities in town.
Okay, appreciate that. All right, then if there's nothing else, we'll take a vote to approve with the changes. Keith, aye.
Stone, aye.
Hawkins, aye.
All right. We have no correspondence tonight, correct, Margaret?
That's correct.
All right. Is there any public comment? Dave or June? I don't see any hands raised. Okay, then I think we'll go ahead, if it's okay with everyone, to...
Actually, Dave has his hand raised.
Okay.
I'm going to open up his mic so we can speak. Hold on.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dave.
He's muted.
Well, I asked him to undo.
Looked like he was unmuted for a moment. There we go.
I'm a little slow. You have to bear with me.
That's okay.
Can you hear me now? So,
yep.
Unrelated to what's on the table, I just got a message from Mr. Bernard saying the numbers that we supplied him do not work.
They were the numbers, actually. I'm going to look at the letter and make sure that we have the...
It ends in 583.
Yeah, let me, oops, wait a second. Mary, do you have the full number by any chance? Okay, so it was 892 561 36583. Yeah, so those are actually the numbers that are in the letter.
Well,
can you just respond and tell him that those were the correct ones?
I will do that right now.
I'll put Dave in the audience until 7:10.
yeah.
Unless you want to talk to Dave earlier.
That's my question to the board. Is that all right with you?
I'm fine with talking to Dave earlier.
Me too.
We did just send him on a task, so.
Are you good, Dave?
Yeah, I'm good. I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't mean to interrupt that. I didn't.
No, sorry, no, that was worthwhile.
Okay. You want to give your report?
Okay, so I'm assuming everybody has my published report for the month of September.
Yep.
Mhm.
So once again, trees are the major problem in town. I did get a response from National Grid. They came in and trimmed one tree. But other than that, interesting fact, the storm that we had last week, not one dead tree came down. Every tree that came down and created a problem was a live tree.
Oh, I was so hoping that Mother Nature was going to help us out.
Yeah, not so lucky.
Because
And
I have a live tree to report to you that's leaning on power lines.
perfect. I'll call National Grid.
Yeah.
So we had an issue with the library with the roots from a tree grew into the pipe. We had to actually excavate to replace a line of the pipe because we could not cut the roots. Obviously, you know that we're short on employees, and I got to give the guys a lot of credit for what they've been able to do with basically two.
Yep.
It was a little hectic the other night, but we got it done. I've been talking with the police chief. We've been going over the traffic routes and the signage and whatnot, and how to best use the grant money that we're receiving to mitigate the traffic flow around the common. Electrician is online to do the upgrade for the library for the new septic system. The electrostatic sprayers finally came in and were distributed. One to Town Hall, one to Council on Aging, one to 1870, one to police. And I have a backpack sprayer at the highway barn. So we can do all the trucks in the large areas of the building. And it's available should somebody need it if they think they need to do a wide disinfecting program. So we changed the culvert on Gates Pond that failed. That was kind of challenging with just 3 of us, but we got it done. We got a tree come down on Linden Street on a call-in that once again was not a dead tree, it was a live tree. We did conduct interviews for the open position. Unfortunately, I've had to trim Aiden's hours back in order to keep him so he doesn't go over his allotted time. He's only working 2 days a week currently, and he is looking for other employment, just so you know. But it is what it is. At some point, we're going to have to look at trying to get an entry-level position in the department so that we can hire somebody like this and get them trained and transitioned into a benefited full-time employee. Fred did the roof replacement on the storage building at North Cemetery. We removed the water tanks for the community garden. And while we're talking about water tanks, one of the water tanks in the town public safety building, there's 4 tanks downstairs in the janitor's closet, and one of them has sprung a leak. I've taken it out of the circuit. We generally only use 2 at a time, and I rotate them out. So I've been in touch with Whitewater to see if, in fact, we need all 4. I think there was 4 of them when the school was there to have enough storage capacity for all the students. But I don't think we need 4 storage tanks anymore. And I'm hoping we don't, because it's about a $15,000 replacement.
Wow.
So that's all I have.
So I know that you were working on getting an estimate for the Tolman property. Have you heard anything?
Yes. I submitted that quote to Margaret. What was it, 80,000 or 100,000, Margaret?
Tolman is 100,000.
100. That was a rough estimate. That doesn't involve, or should you run into environmental issues with pesticide or oil, that's just to clean up the what you can see, the structures above ground,
And
in the concrete, the foundations.
And we'll be getting some kind of an estimate as far as the chemicals and whatnot?
So I'm not sure. That's going to be touchy. I'm not sure we can go on that property and test without owning it.
So, well, I was going to bring this up in my TA report tonight, but
Sorry.
through the chair, that's okay. Through the chair, I did have a conversation with Catherine Young at the EPA today. EPA was out there about 6 weeks ago. They finally got permission to access the site. So they walked the site. I don't know, this is probably not going to answer your question. The EPA does require more investigation, site investigation into the contaminants, particularly the petroleum. She attended the site visit with a DEP rep. They are going to need more info as to where the sheen was actually located. And also they need to try to figure out where the piping runs under the site, because they need to know something about the drainage and where the petroleum contamination may have been. She said under one of their programs, the program she was referencing, there has to be a threat to a navigable waterway in order for them to proceed with cleanup. So she has asked if the town has any plans showing the drainage. So I'm going to be reaching out to fire and building commissioner to see if they have any information on the inlet pipe and how that pipe crosses the property. So that's all I have at the moment on the contaminants.
Okay.
Okay.
Dave, I just had one other question. We were looking at the Berlin town buildings, and can you tell me, is there highway things in the old highway barn? Is there anything stored for highway in the old highway barn?
Yes, actually, there's quite a few things stored in there. And in the winter, we actually put a lot more stuff in there.
Okay.
So,
I had suspected so, but I just was
Right.
double checking.
So it's my understanding that we spent $4 million on a building so that all highway equipment could be at one spot and stored in one building. Is that not the case, that we have spent $4 million on one building for that purpose?
You spent $4.1 million, and
Right.
they took, the building was supposed to be, I forget if it was 2,000 or 4,000 square feet bigger than it actually is, and they trimmed that down to get the cost down. So in fact, yes, the $4 million was spent, but the building isn't sized adequate enough to put everything the town owns inside.
Okay. I was just double checking because we're, looking at what is in each of the buildings that
And
we
so
have.
the very old highway barn on South Street by the tennis courts, is there things stored in that building as well?
So there are two items in there. There's one is an old sweeper that we could deem surplus and get rid of it. It really doesn't have a lot of value. And the other thing is it's a roller. You call it a steam roller that the town bought, I think, in 1929 or 28, something like that. That it would be a shame to part with it. It would make a really neat looking decoration out in front of the highway barn under a pavilion type of thing. If we could get, it wouldn't take a lot of money to do something like that. But you see them quite often in other towns where they take an antique piece of equipment and put it on display like that.
Yep. And so the highway barn on Carter Street, you're still storing a bunch of stuff in, is what you said.
Correct. And Council on Aging puts the van in there for the winter.
Over by Berlin Memorial, then there's also another, there's the old salt and stand shed. Is there stuff in that as well?
The salt shed is full of salt.
Okay.
At some point, I'd like to see a shed put at 112 West Street so we don't have to travel across town to get our supplies.
See, when I remember being on FinCom when we approved that the originally 3.8 million, it included the cost of a salt shed at that building. So again, everything was going to be at one site. That's why the town agreed to spend $4 million, just so that we only had one building in town and one location in town for all the stuff. And so I don't know who and when decided to cut things back so that the whole intent of that one building is not met. I know you weren't here, Dave, so I'm venting not at you.
And while we're talking about South Commons, we have that tin building down there.
Yes.
That, we house all of our mowing equipment, basically, because most everything is centralized from that location.
Okay. Well, good answers, Dave.
I wish they were better.
Peg and Scott, did you have any other questions?
Are you still waiting to hear, what is it, Richard Road? You were waiting to get a consultant to go in and take a look at the drainage up there. Any movement on that?
So I actually talked to the survey company who did some work up there and said they had all the records that they needed and were going to get back to me. Excuse me, that was a couple weeks ago and I haven't heard from them. I need to reach out to them again.
That was on what location, Peg?
The Richards Road, the one up off of
Okay.
Richards Drive, Beach Hill?
Yeah.
No, Barnes Hill.
Barnes Hill.
Barnes Hill. Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
I just have a little, through the chair, I just have a little something to add to Dave's, the information Dave provided and information for Dave too. So the electrician that's going to be doing the library electrical panel upgrade called me today. We were just waiting for his certificate of insurance and workers' comp affidavit, and he's going to be getting those to Dave. Once we have those in place, we can then coordinate the work with the library and get that done for the new septic system.
Can we go back to the Tolman property a minute? It kind of piggybacks off Dave's question. The town of Berlin does not own that property, correct?
No.
Correct.
Correct.
So here's the silly question of the day. And I kind of sort of know the answer. If we don't own the property, then why are we going out getting rough ideas and estimates to try and clean it up? Because if we start to clean it up, does Berlin like take that by eminent domain? So we're stuck with a potential nasty brownfield?
Well, Dave, I don't know if you want to take this or want me to just,
Go ahead,
I
Peg.
can
Go
give you
ahead,
a short answer to that question, Peg. That property has been on the tax taking
Mm,
list for a number of years.
Correct.
The town has held off on taking it because of the potential contaminants on the property. So
Right.
that's why we've proceeded with trying to get this brownfields work
Yep.
done and looking at costs to clean it up. This is an abandoned property that's not going to improve without the town taking it, and that's really the short answer. And yeah, that's it.
So right now we're just looking at potential costs of what it will take to, you know, get the buildings down and potentially EPA in there to see whatever they need to do, but we're not moving forward with any type of discussion of here's $1 bazillion, go fix it, because we don't own it and we may not want to own it.
Well, it's a conversation that the board may have to have at some point.
Yeah, Dennis has never been a fan of us owning that property because once we're in the chain of ownership, we become some liability for all the stuff on it.
That's
And
true.
so even though we get some quotes, I mean, knowing that it's $100,000 to take down the buildings, but that doesn't mean it's still not millions to remove the contaminants.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
And if that's the answer, then we may decide not to take the property. I think that's really basically what we were looking into.
I have a contact for legal counsel at the EPA, so I can probably reach out to them and talk about, you know, relief of the town's liability in the event that it needs to take the property. So I can follow up on that as well.
And it's safe to assume that the current owner is an entity that is not in existence anymore. There's no one we can go after to clean things up.
The
what,
current
Florida?
owner, I believe, lives in Florida.
Yeah.
That's
And he
And-
gave permission
Yep.
for
Yeah.
the town to go on the property
and EPA, which was
and EPA.
Mhm.
And I believe some of the neighbors would appreciate it if it was cleaned up too.
Correct.
So I'll look into it a little more with legal and find out exactly what the town's liability position is with regard to taking the property for unpaid taxes, and I can report to the board on that.
Okay. All right, then thank you very much, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Good. Could I just have one more question? I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the organization Bay State Roads that we achieved Aiden through has another intern individual looking for employment, and I'd like to put them on. It's no cost or liability to the town. They reimburse 100% for 8 weeks of employment. So
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I do. I think
Have
it's a
you
great
met the
idea.
guy? Have you met the person?
I have not. I'm going to set up an interview. He's actually he's not a student. I think he's middle aged. I'm not positive, just going from the resume that he sent me. But it's a program that Bay State Roads does, and he's already gone through some training with Worcester DPW, and now he's looking for an internship. And the hope is that after he does an internship, he can be placed in a DPW regionally as a full-time employee.
Okay, you've talked with Margaret about this?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
he introduced that to us today, and I look at that program as a win-win for the town if it's fully reimbursed. Absolutely.
Yeah, and additionally, if it doesn't work, I mean, if you're 2 weeks into the program and you find out this individual isn't worthwhile, you terminate them. So,
Okay,
Through the program, correct?
correct.
Okay.
okay. I'm seeing head nods from people, so,
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right.
okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, moving on to the town administrator report.
Okay. Things come rapid fire. So there are things that I don't include in my report over the weekend that come up on Monday. So one of the newest things that just came up today, I've been notified that we should be expecting the Attorney General's approval of the general bylaws that were resubmitted for town meeting approval this spring. So we should be receiving their approval likely next week. The Attorney General's office was a little, I don't want to say confused. They noted that the path these bylaws took kind of differed from the regular procedural process because of that special legislation issue. But our town council, Janelle Austin, made sure that they were clear that there has been no response on the special legislation, and that's why this procedural this procedural change occurred. They're also probably going to be putting a footnote on their approval that the zoning bylaw that was presented in 2019, and I can't tell you exactly what the zoning bylaw was off the top of my head, but the one that was presented in 2019 that was not resubmitted for approval in 2020 will not be acted upon. It's going to continue to be held pending special legislation. So that's going to go. That's going to be held. This means that the Community Preservation Act Committee, the CPC, will be able to actually get off the ground and start meeting as soon as next. Well, I'll probably set up a meeting for the last week in October if the members of the interim committee are available. We could do a kickoff then. On the budget calendar guide, the draft budget calendar guide, it was requested of me to change the budget submission deadline from November 27th to November 30th. November 27th happens to be the day after Thanksgiving. And in fairness to everyone who's preparing budgets and recognizing that people might want to spend some well-deserved time with family, I have made the change to the draft budget guide to Monday, November 30th. It's only a 2-day difference, but it at least gives the weekend for submission of those. I've sent a copy of the draft calendar guide to the board and FinCom. Tax bills, fall tax bills are going to be going out this week. They are dated October 16th. The deadline, I believe would be November 16th. So I am going to be submitting a newsletter as an insert with the tax bills that goes over the multiple property tax relief programs that the town offers eligible residents. That insert is also going to include a 1-question survey about delivery of annual town reports. So because the board had requested that go out to residents, and we get hopefully we'll get some feedback on that as to how residents would like town reports delivered in future years. Now, also today, there has been a date set for a community information session on the Shared Streets and Spaces pilot program. I think the board might have gotten this email, so I just want to be sure. Well, I want to check with you to see if you're available next Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Chief Galvin and the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee will actually be doing the community information session, explaining how the pilot project will look. That's going to affect central traffic patterns on Central Street and Carter and Woodward. There's also going to be some flashing pedestrian beacons put up on Central Street so people can cross more safely. There will be temporary barricades, expanding sidewalk areas, and bicycle paths. So can I ask the board members, are you available to attend next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock?
I was planning on trying to attend.
Okay.
I was also.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. We'll get the, Mary will have to post the board's meeting. We're also going to post a meeting of the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee for that, and we'll get the Zoom credentials out. All right. We've got a couple of big deadlines this week. We've got the MEMA deadline for submitting COVID expenses through September 14th. We also have a deadline looming this week for what? Sorry, just lost my train of thought here. We have a deadline, for our Green Communities Annual Report. And thankfully, CMRPC is helping us with that, and we'll be sure to get that submitted. Once that's submitted, we can then actually qualify in the next Green Communities Action Grant round. So we're working on that too. I received an email today, another email confirmation from the contractor working at the Bullard House on the structural survey, saying he has got the deadline duly noted, and he is going to be working on the project and get us a final report by December 6th as was required. I'm sorry, I shouldn't go through everything. Let's see, what else are the big news items this week?
I like the fact that you did the gray.
Oh gosh, yes.
You know, I do.
A lot of,
Yeah.
okay, I'm glad. Yeah, it helps highlight new information. All right, so the 40B Affordable Housing Monitoring Services, I want to be sure to stay on that. Last week, Eloise Sauls, who's on the Housing Partnership, suggested contacting CMRPC. However, I've spoken with CMRPC. They themselves don't provide the service. They know of other agencies that provide the service. I just want to be sure that we stay on this in order to assure that a petition by the town is submitted to the consortium to join by the deadline of December 31st. And that would be an effective, they have to decide whether or not we can join, and then that membership would be effective at the start of next fiscal year.
Is planning board talking about that tonight? Do you know?
I am guessing they are, because I have asked Tim to bring it to the planning board for discussion. So my hope is yes, and if not tonight, definitely their next meeting, because it would be great to have a direction. Mm-hmm. I guess I should probably address Maplewood. There is increased trucking activity going to and from Maplewood Farm. This is the entity that the town has a settlement agreement with. We have little flexibility as far as the agreement itself. However, violations of the contract, I think, could have some enforcement with the board being the enforcing authority, or pausing the contract, for example, if trucking does not comply with the requirements of the agreement. Now, Chief Galvin has talked with the owner of Lighthouse Management, who schedules the trucking companies. They have talked about putting up temporary signs that can be put up in the morning, taken down at night, so that truckers know what streets, what paths they need to take in order to bring material to the farm. But I really want to make it clear to residents, this is not going to be what abutters want to hear. The agreement itself, which was executed, it was executed several years ago, does not give flexibility to the town, or the town authority to change the frequency of hauling. The hauling is allowed under the contract, and there's very little we can do except continue to monitor the trucking activity to assure they comply with the paths, the trucking paths, and the trucking hours. So we're trying to stay on that as best as we can.
When the town negotiated that contract, they put no end date on that. They could put, hundreds of, they could make it taller than Wachusett if they wanted to, right?
Yeah, there's
was there a limit to the amount of soil, though?
There wasn't a limit in the agreement to the amount of soil. However, the only provisions in the contract that address the importation of soil talk about compliance with they called it the site plan. So they had to be compliant with a site plan. So when they talk about the upper level and the lower level, those areas must be graded to what the site plan called for. So that's really the only thing that we can follow in the agreement.
So,
I'm still.
Go ahead. Sorry, Margaret.
Apparently there's an ACO that might have been, or that was issued by DEP, or that may exist, that may, once we get our hands on it, that may be able to help us with respect to costs that we're incurring for the town's licensed site professionals in the future. So there may be able, we may be able to do something with the amount of money we're spending on our LSP in the future if the ACO provides for additional monitoring that we're currently picking up. So that would be DEP taking on that function. So I have to look into that.
Right, and this agreement was like 6 years ago. It was 2014 or so, right?
Yeah, it is several years ago, yeah.
So, Margaret, you had mentioned that Chief Galvin is meeting with Lighthouse Management. Has he met with them? Is he meeting with them? When is there going to be an expected course of action? Because I just, as I mentioned, when I sent the letter out to you guys, I had nothing to do with it. I got tagged by a resident in town because somebody said, hey, are there any selectmen on this thread? And I got well, Peg Stone's here. So I want to make sure that I can respond back.
He has had an initial discussion. I just happened to know the owner's name from one of my former municipalities, and so I was able to put him in touch with him. So they've only had an initial discussion at this point, Peg, and it was just this past week.
All right.
Okay.
So do you think that we could, I know that Tom's not scheduled to come next week, but either get a report from him or get an update from him, because I just don't want it. I feel like it, it's like you're dangling participle. I don't want it to just hang out there and say, well, we met with them and this is what we're going to try to do with them. And then we don't have any follow-up. It's like the train track trash, it just keeps going and going and going without any real definitive.
Right. All right. And I'm going to try to be as clear as possible over, through these updates on Maplewood. I'm going to try to be as clear as possible that we're going to try to work with signage. We're going to try to keep truckers going on the correct routes. We're going to try to assure that they obey the hauling hours. Beyond that, it's going to be very difficult.
So if residents have complaints, instead of putting it out on Facebook, should I direct them to get in touch with Chief Galvin with specific questions, comments, concerns?
If they can get in touch with us about what they believe are violations of the settlement agreement, the town, if they can get to me, to Chief Galvin, Margaret. As long as they're contacting the town directly, we can then follow up with Lighthouse.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, I got it.
And we'll do our best to stay on it.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, I hope that, I guess that's
keep
it.
going. If you're not through, go ahead.
Just a couple of upcoming events I wanted to mention. First of all, Concom's Fall Earth Day roadside cleanup will be happening this Saturday, October 17th from 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. The weather is not looking promising, but the roadside cleanup will go on. The bag pickup location and street assignments will be in front of our offices, and I spoke with Louise this morning. I may open the lobby for them so they can at least sit inside instead of out in the rain to do the street assignments. Yellow roadside trash collection bags are available in the front vestibule of this building and at the general store. Everyone participating must wear a mask when social distancing isn't possible during the event. And folks should bring protective gloves and clothing and water to rehydrate. I should also add, and I didn't note any COVID concerns or COVID protocols this evening, but I think it's becoming increasingly clear that COVID positivity is increasing around the state. We have a couple of neighboring communities that are now in the red. And overall, the state's increase in positivity rates is over 4%, and that spells trouble. So we want to try to be sure that residents continue to be vigilant about wearing masks and social distancing, washing hands, and doing all the protocols that we were reminded to do at the beginning of this pandemic, because it's not going away yet. And we all have to try to do our part. And I should add that Berlin itself has a couple of confirmed isolation cases. So we are not out of the woods here in Berlin or anywhere for that matter. So I'm sorry, I'm getting off track. The next thing is the Berlin Halloween Fest, and I know Peg is going to be discussing this later with the board, so I'll leave that for you. And then finally, Lisa Smith, our 1870 Town Hall manager, has scheduled a fun family variety show on Saturday, November 7th. That's going to feature a DJ, an MC, and a Boston magician and juggler who is going to entertain families in a socially distanced manner. The Grand Hall will be set up in a socially distanced fashion to allow immediate families to sit together, but to be spaced apart from others. Masks are going to be required. Details on tickets, showtime, and performers are the tickets actually are being sold at 1870 Town Hall Berlin.eventbrite.com. Tickets are $13 each, and it sounds like it's going to be a great time for families. So happy to see that. See Lisa really working to try to get that moving again. And that's all I have for tonight.
Okay. Any questions for Margaret? Peg.
I know, shocking. This is not the, new business, otherwise known as PEG open question session. Margaret, quick question. On the grant that you and I are working on with Dave for the Maya, however you call it, are we able to get together with him? What's today? Tuesday? Oh,
yes. I forgot to ask him today.
I'll ask him.
Let me, yes.
No,
please.
I'll ask him.
Please.
Because there's, so the second part of that, on the cleanup for this weekend in the town, did we ever reach out to Dave to ask him about any type of additional help from the sheriff's department, what they can do? Maybe not. I know I didn't. Okay, all right.
I did not. And I know, I think when Louise was meeting with the board last time, Louise thought it might be good to have them come a different time.
Yep. All right. I will do
I didn't think they did weekends.
Well, we don't know.
Yeah, we
don't know. So we gotta ask. All right, I'll take that one too. Wait, don't go. I have a list. All right, the Bullet House, nothing. Anything from LASA, Margaret? Or is that just kind of
nothing recent? The last notice I got from them was that they were surveying their members, their membership. They thanked us for being patient with them. They're still very interested, but I think it seemed to me, and this was way back in September, probably early September, seemed to me that they were still working on getting all their ducks in a row.
Okay. What about C3? Anything on that? Is everything now in the Cannabis Commission's hand, and
they have filed their application with the CCC? Okay. We are not done because they still have the special permit and site plan approval process that they need to go through here.
Okay.
Zoning hearings have been paused due to COVID. So we're actually going to be talking about kind of a longer term strategy about how to safely get those going again.
Okay. Just two more questions. I'll keep them brief. So back to conservation and cleanup. Mary, bless her heart, was kind enough to go out and find costs of, like the sticks that you stab the trash with. I didn't know if it was something that I could just send as a suggestion, obviously not for this weekend, you can't do it, but send to conservation to say, hey, this is out there. Maybe, I don't know, next year can conservation buy a bunch of them and sell them so they're not responsible for upkeep? Maybe that would help with trash pickup to, get either the, the grippy things or the stabby things. So people actually weren't like bending down and picking up nasty, gross stuff.
Well, That is a wonderful idea. And honestly, if you talk about a grant opportunity, that might be one through DEP's Solid Waste Division.
Really?
They
Right.
have a small, yeah, they have a small grants program. I don't know if it's up and running. I haven't
Yep.
looked into it in the
I can
recent
look.
past, but that might be something, you know, since the town is so dedicated.
There it is. It's the stabby stick.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's something to look into. Might not be a bad idea to look into a small grant for that.
Okay. And is there anything additional coming up with any type of final report or additional meetings with the consultant on all the job descriptions?
Yeah.
That,
So, yeah. So the job descriptions. The job description she's provided, and I think I
Right.
gave you access to all of those, her draft job descriptions. I
Right.
received very few back from departments with proposed markups. So, and I had distributed those along with the performance appraisal forms for that whole process. She is working still, and I can touch base with her tomorrow. She's still working on adding the 3 smaller size towns to the market rate data. So that we can kind of look at more comparable towns. So she's still working on that, but I can touch base with her tomorrow to see where she's at.
Okay. And that concludes Peg's question session.
Oh, thank you.
For now. For now.
Okay.
Okay.
Scott, do you have any?
Hey.
Oh, I'm still on my A game.
I think he asked both of ours.
I'm just trying to work on my list of town buildings and what they're used for, and I'm trying to calm down from the idea that we spent $3.8 million and didn't get what we wanted for 4.1. And that, like, what was the process that broke down that when the town voted for $3.8 million to do task X, that someone decided we're going to spend more money but not get task X done, is a process breakdown that I was trying to figure out how we make sure it doesn't happen again.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, we're going to move on to old business and to vote to open the warrant for the Saturday, December 5th special town meeting. It'll be at noon at the Berlin Public Safety Complex, which is attached to or aside the Berlin Town offices at 23 Linden Street. Margaret, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, my recommendation is going to be on location only at this point. The board already discussed the date and the time for special town meeting. I am recommending that the town meeting be held here at 23 Linden Street. The primary town meeting space would be in the fire bays because that's obviously the place that can hold the most people. And we will have overflow areas set up. However, we have a lot of logistical planning to do. Chief Clark is on board to help with that. Chief Galvin is as well. I know Dave will be as well. We talked about this at department heads meeting this morning. So we are going to get going on logistics to try to get the special town meeting taken care of here. I think we have 2 options with overflow. First is to get a tent and kind of set it up right outside of the fire bays and have heaters there so that people can actually sit under a tent and be somewhat warm during the town meeting. The other option is to have overflow rooms, the first being the training room, and also have the 2 meeting rooms on the second floor here be overflow rooms. We would, however, if that was the case, we would, however, need technology in order to be able to communicate with the main town meeting area. So we're looking at the availability of coronavirus relief funds in order to be able to have monitors set up. And I'd like to work with the cable committee on 2-way communication so that one room could communicate with the other room. So that will take a lot of planning, but we're already thinking about it. So my recommendation is here after all that.
So your recommendation is to have it at the town offices.
23 Linden Street.
We also do need to vote to open the warrant, correct?
You do, yes. And the warrant would close Monday, November 2nd at 4:30 p.m.
Okay, with all the articles in the Selectmen's office by that time. All right. Questions, comments?
Nope.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any other comments?
So we're gonna stand firm, correct? That if an article shows up late and it doesn't have the summary, and if there's still questions on it, we're not putting it in, we're not playing the chase game. It's, here's your deadline, here's your items, you get it in, you miss it, door closes, so sad, too bad, you're out.
The board was pretty successful with that in the spring, and I think that we can stick to that.
Okay?
Yeah, and in some respects, the draft calendar, I'd like us to be a little more aggressive with, if possible, just in that if we're mailing things out on, November 30th for December, if we're finalizing the motions on November 30th for December 5th, that's not a lot of time for people in the town to be ready for it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I'd love to find out ways, and hopefully, maybe there's not so many that we need to review and vote a ton of times, and on the second we're really close to final wording of it,
Mm-hmm.
so that we're not spending several more weeks doing final wording.
That works, and there is sufficient time. I also like to get the articles to legal for review in batches rather than as one whole, as one
Yep.
wholesale thing. I like to kind of get them out of the way as we go. So yeah, that's fine, and I can actually have some of the warrant articles drafted next week for those articles that are nearly certain will have to appear.
Right.
Okay. All right, then we've got a motion and a second on the table for opening the town meeting, or opening the warrant and closing it on Monday, November 2nd at 4:30. Ready to take a vote?
Indeed.
Keefe, aye.
Stone eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Okay, motion passes. And we did talk a little bit about the other fall 2020 special town meeting concerns, the action calendar being one, and updates to potential articles. Did you have any other updates for us, Margaret?
I don't have any new potential articles added to the list. So what you saw last week is what you see this week.
Okay.
However, as you know, last week I did add comments to that list. Yep. To note those articles that don't necessarily have to be brought to the special.
Right.
Although it's also true, anything we push off the special is going to be in May, which will already be a long town meeting anyway. So,
mm-hmm.
But
right.
Yes.
So I just have one quick question about I'm just not clear on what the issue is with the septic at the 1870. What brought this to our attention?
Okay.
Are there symptoms?
Yeah, I can explain how this started. So Lisa Smith, our new 1870 town hall manager, innocently contacted Neshoba Associated Boards of Health about a food service permit, and the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health informed her that they can't have a food service permit, and I don't know all the details. I could find that out. But what that did was it opened up questions about the septic at the 1870 town hall. So it was the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health, our health agent, Bill Brookings, who brought this to my attention, that they would like to see an engineering review of the septic system size and design capacity for the system. But I will let the board know, this is an issue that goes back to 1959, as far as I can tell. This is such a long-standing issue that doing the engineer review is only one piece of a potentially much bigger endeavor. So this was asked, and I'm going to actually ask that the Board of Health or the health agent give us something in writing that requires the engineering design or engineering review to be done. So
Because we did
it's
no
irres-
capacity change to that building for the upgrades we just did.
No.
So
Is it?
apparently the renovation did not trigger the need to review the septic because it wasn't expanding the used space, was only expanding for elevator and
Right.
vestibule area.
Right. And so if the septic has been fine since 1959, why do we have to do anything now?
That was my question.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we need clarification from the Board of Health on this. I plugged it in when we were asked to look at it. So,
I mean, just because someone's curious doesn't mean that we need to open this up for a multi-million-dollar project.
mhm.
I mean, I want to make sure that like, just because we're not, I don't want to do this because just somebody is curious.
Yeah.
Or just
And-
because if we don't do food service, is there an issue?
Right. And frankly, the building's use has not changed. The building is
Right.
being used consistently with its past uses. So,
Right.
so I agree with you, and I'll try to get something in writing from the Board of Health or Neshoba.
Okay, I just don't want to scare people to think there's going to be a multi-million-dollar project coming, you know,
Mhm.
until we know for sure something like that does need to happen.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, that was my only question on the special town meeting articles. Anybody else, or shall we
I'm
move
ready to
on?
move on. Yep.
Okay, you're up next, I guess, Scott. Review the inventory of town real estate property.
Yep.
Do you have anything to date?
I mean, I sent you out the Google Doc that I created, and we're adding some more to it. Margaret, you were going to, I think you asked the assessor, again, it's not a critical thing, so I didn't expect it by today, but to pull the cards on these so we get a little bit more on the square footage. I actually added some more years built based on actually the town report. Annual town report actually has some of these listed as town milestones, as building of X building or Y building. Dave helped us fill in, so I added a few things. Chris has added some to it. And so I think this is the beginning of our both inventory, the future uses, sort of wild ass guessing stuff, and I think will be part of our sort of conversation.
Okay.
I think the interesting parts is I still have, you know, who is the owner of some of these buildings. I think we discovered already in this that although the town owns the Berlin Memorial School, that we should likely have a lease on it. And so at some point that will become a work task to make sure that we have a proper lease between us and the school on who is responsible for what in that building before it becomes a crisis and we have to make it up and there's finger pointing. It'd be nice to agree to that stuff ahead of time.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's any other comments you want to go down. I think if I could get a hold of Barry at some point, we get, you know, when the North and South Cemetery Tool House buildings were done, or when the old fire station and old rescue barn at 14 and 12 West Street were actually built. I don't know. I thought it was the managed by was a column I added later on, but like, you know, who is in charge of making sure that the building is properly used or properly leased and what falls to us and others.
Mm.
And I didn't ask, I knew Dave takes care of all the highway barn stuff, but does really Dave do the old fire station, old rescue barn? Has he decided, you know,
He's
what gets
responsible
put in
for
there?
facilities maintenance of it. He's responsible for facilities, but he doesn't, oh, well, and actually he is actively, I think, I don't know if he mentioned this during
Right.
his thing tonight, but he is actively working with, he's got a meeting with Chris Pendergast of the Boy Scouts to go
Yep.
to the building this weekend. So he is actually working on with the users
Yep.
of those buildings.
And then Legion Hall, there's a group using it, but we don't actually know, like, so it's the Board of Selectmen that basically are in charge of that lease. Do we actually have a lease?
I don't believe so. Not that I know of.
Yeah. So we might find little like things here and there that this will help us clarify both from an administrative standpoint, but as we start getting square feet and know what things are used for, then we can start talking about, you know, what we think future uses are. This is shared with all of you, so it is ability that if you discover something in your digging of paperwork, fill it in.
I just found a typo. Should I fill it in?
Yeah.
I think we need an N in elementary school.
No.
Both places. Both
Yeah.
places.
I will. See, this is where this feature comes in handy. See, we'll find other ones too. So I will fix some of those things as we go.
Okay.
Um,
No, nice job.
Mhm.
but I've got it started at least.
Yeah.
Yes. Scott, I'll try to get you those priority cards by next week.
Okay.
Or maybe later this week. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
There may be something in the annual report under recreations reports. God knows what year it was, probably in the early 2000s when they brought in the snack shack. I think they
Yep.
brought it in from somewhere.
Right. And I also think there's 5 small storage sheds around all those fields. And,
Yeah.
I'm assuming those are all town property and not school property.
Which ones are those?
They're around the fields around South and the South Common. Many of the fields have a small building sitting next to the field. It has a lock on it. They're probably not more than 50 square feet. But I believe those all belong to us and don't belong to the school.
Well, there is one behind the school, right next to the soccer field, that I think has that belongs to the school, I believe.
Right. So this is part of the thing that this list will have clarify is what
Yeah.
really belongs to us and what really belongs to other people. And like I haven't figured out, I have the standing question. I don't think there is, but are there buildings on any of the conservation lands? Do we have buildings that now belong to the town? I don't know if we bought any that actually had like houses on it. I don't think, but
You'd have to
there's-
ask conservation.
I know. Yep.
Yeah.
So we'll get to
Okay.
those.
All
I
right.
don't think there's anything on that's the other thing, our schedule of buildings for our insurer. That's another thing we can cross-check this against.
Mhm.
I started with that list and June's list of assets that we have on the books. And so that's where I got some of these.
Good.
I got this list to start off with.
Okay. Any other questions for Scott? All right. Nice job, Scott. We'll keep that moving. Let's see, where are we? Filling vacancies on town boards and committees. This is a new policy and procedure.
This is a draft policy and procedure that would be incorporated into the board and committee handbook, but it is not the entire board and committee handbook. So I just want to make sure the board's clear on that. Mary's still working on compiling the handbook, a draft of the handbook itself. So this is just a portion of it. Peg is the only one that submitted comments and questions. Do the other board members want an opportunity to also submit questions and comments?
The only thing I saw looking at it again is when you click the link of current openings, it is currently only the select board appointed position openings. And so I think if we're doing recruiting at some point, we have to, I think we are a team at this town and we should have a list of all openings, no matter who the appointing authority is. And so I don't know how you adjust both that website to reflect that, but also, that also means that if you're interested in it, you go to different places.
Okay.
I know when I sent that link, when we started this process, I sent that link out to some of the people around here and a few other places. The feedback I got was, well, except my committee has this opening and you didn't include that. Why are you excluding us? And
Yeah.
it was not my intent to slight anybody, but.
All right, we'll see what we can do. Mary, I thought Mary noted, I think Mary does note on some of the, Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, on the list that you have on the website.
Well done. Excellent timing, Margaret. Excellent
The
timing.
list, yeah, there you go. Oh, take a break from that first for 1 second. On the list that you put up on the website of the board and the select board appointed boards and committees, do you also note on there that, a board and committee might have also a member appointed by the moderator or a member appointed by another body?
Yep, the list of appointments that is up on the Selectmen's webpage is only the Selectmen appointments, but that includes when there's a Selectman appointee to a board or committee with several other appointing authorities.
Okay.
And I note all the members that I know of, but I'm not even given notice sometimes when somebody resigns as a finance
Right.
committee appointee, let's say, to, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm not on the loop, but to the best of my knowledge, but I do put the selectmen appointed. I show the total number of seats and the revolving term expiration dates to the best of my knowledge. But I've asked the town clerk, who's also in the audience, if there could be some kind of shared database, because there's so many different places that information needs to be updated, not just on the selectmen's webpage, but on their individual web pages and on my town government,
Right.
and people who are going to be possibly added to group emails if we ever get to that point. It's just like there's an onslaught of, oh, here we got a hand up in the air, and it's Eloise. Do you want to let Eloise be heard?
Sure.
on that?
Are you finished, Mary?
I am. I'm just saying, yes.
Okay.
To the best of my knowledge, the selectmen appointees, anyhow, to these different boards and committees are updated on your webpage.
Okay.
We also have an application form for volunteers that is morphed from time to time to include other appointing authorities. So like if there was a vacancy on the FinCom, saying apply to the moderator using that form, but I've never seen anybody really use that form for other appointing authorities. So I don't know.
Okay. Do you want to
Without
bring
agreement, it's hard to make it unified because they're different silos.
Right.
Can you bring Eloise forward then? Right. Eloise, you're muted.
She's muted, but there's some sort of odd video-ish thing there.
She's a lovely shade of yellow. She does like the rest of us. She sticks a piece of paper in front of the camera so you're not
Okay, she's
viewed.
unmuted. She's.
Yep, there she is.
Okay, I was going to say, I am often not told who is being appointed, and I have to chase people down when they leave a board. It is a problem.
Yeah.
They will write to their board that they're leaving, but then their
Right.
board goes to make an appointment, and I say, how can you make an appointment if you don't have a vacancy?
Well, the most important thing when you resign from a committee is to let the town clerk know.
That's the legal process.
Right.
Nope.
Sometimes it's not a straight out
Look.
resignation. Sometimes it's just letting your term lapse and we don't know at the end that they intended to step off at the end of their expiration.
That is true.
Yeah.
It is an issue.
Do you feel as though, have you shared this with Eloise, this procedures and policy? Anyone?
Who are you talking to?
Anyone?
Mary, did Eloise get a copy of this? I know
It
we were
wasn't
talking
mine
about.
to share. It should be, I mean, it could be shared with the moderator and everybody.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we should circulate this. My suggestion to the board tonight is we need to, first of all, we need to circulate this to all appointing authorities. We need to figure out how to build a more comprehensive list of appointed boards and committees on the website in some central location. We also need to do a new appointee packet. So Mary had outlined all the documents that need to be given to new appointees and all the requirements they need to meet. So I think we have some more work to do on this.
If I find out about an appointee or about a vacancy, it is my obligation to notify the respective appointing authority as well as the remaining members of that committee.
Okay.
And I try to work with Mary on that.
Okay. All right, Eloise, we're going to get this draft to you, understanding that it's a work in progress. We want you to weigh in on this, and also we'll get it to the other appointing authorities for their review.
Thank you.
So is this an opportunity, Margaret, Scott, Chris, that if we need to update the website or make the links more succinct, that we reach out to Tohoto or Assabet and maybe get somebody who's in web design to, basically, I don't know, use us for a college project or something? I mean, it's an opportunity for community outreach.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe an intern or something,
Yeah.
but we are going to be losing Garth at the end of
Correct.
this month.
Correct.
Well, maybe we can come up with some ideas on that.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Eloise.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Eloise.
Yep.
Love the shade of yellow.
Okay. So we'll continue to get an update on that particular policy and procedure.
Continued review, yes.
Okay. And it looks as though we have no new business. So I would say we're down to board questions and comments. Hello,
No, I will let the others go first.
Scott. Questions or comments?
Margaret, is there anything more we can do to help out Historic when it comes to getting their heating and cooling system approved and installed?
Yes, we can provide funding for it. We can help them procure it. I just saw the emails back and forth on the email from the architect.
Right.
So the one thing that I'm not certain of is there have been so many things that have gone back and forth, so many different heating systems that I'm not sure which one they're talking about. Are they talking about the single head unit? Because if they are, that's a less expensive unit.
Yeah, it looked like a single-headed split that just they would heat or cool that whole space. I have one that does my entire living room, dining room, the whole first floor of our house, and so a big open space like they're doing, that should be that should meet their needs.
Okay.
And so they have a quote. They have an architect that says is that, and I don't know was the money always going to come from some fund they already had access to, or
there's a small balance. The question was, is the balance sufficient to pay?
and I thought Barry thought the Historical Society could pay the difference between that quote and what was left in the special fund article, because the Historical Society does have some funds.
Okay, so if the Historical Society does donate that, it would be very gracious of them, but they would have to donate it and the board would have to accept the donation before, because this is not the building itself is a town building. It's the Historical Commission's building. So that process could move forward. The other option, and I think I put it as a possible placeholder, is that the town could appropriate the remaining funds to get that taken care of from free cash or what have you. I guess I just need to be, once I am clear on the system, and I'm guessing it's the lower cost system based on the email that I saw today, then we'll know how much we're looking at. What I don't want to see, what I'd prefer not to see, because it will affect ongoing town budgets, town costs, is an old heater being installed in that building. Even if it worked great in an old building, and in the old building, it's likely not as efficient as a new unit would be. So I'd much prefer to get efficiency in the new building.
So having been on the building committee for a while in the last few years of the building committee, I honestly think there was only one unit that was being recommended, and it was Mitsubishi. I don't know the number of it. I believe it was $3,500, and there was never any talk about any other kind of unit until now.
Something happened somewhere where there was an understanding that the smaller unit wouldn't be able to handle colder temperatures, but based on what I read today, it would.
Right. And I said, I added to what the architect said, is that we have, for my first floor, I have that smaller unit and it has never had a problem in cold weather.
And I don't think this one would either.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we can.
So I just want to make sure, because as you said, it sounds a little confusing. I think it's relatively straightforward in trying to figure out how we help make sure this doesn't get lost in paperwork somewhere, so it doesn't happen. you know, getting this to happen, because once that's put in, then that becomes a viable storage place and starts then this fun domino thing of getting things properly stored in proper locations and potentially frees up valuable space in other parts of town.
Yeah, I wonder if June could answer. I don't know. I always forget what the balance is in that old town meeting article.
Yeah.
June, if you're there,
Well,
I don't want to put her on the spot if she doesn't
I was
have
gonna say,
the information in
say
front
she
of
can
her.
email it out in the next in a little bit, and I'll try to follow up this week with historical to see if they
Well, there
think
was a
anything more is
gentleman,
needed.
there was a gentleman at Assabet who was responsible for getting this unit put in the building.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. Yes, but Alphabet has closed down those programs, so unfortunately, it's
But
not
he
a
would
matter.
know. He would know what the unit
Yes.
was.
Yes.
Right. And that, and as a town building, so this doesn't have to go to like sealed bids and
This is a low cost. Yeah,
right.
This is a low cost. This is going to be a best business practice item under
Right.
149.
Because I can tell you again, in our neighborhood, we have, again, probably a half dozen, if not a dozen homes that have these type of units in them. We have searched high and low for both someone who will service them and install them, and have found only one vendor that we like who's reliable and decently priced. And so I did pass on that phone number to that vendor to the Historical Commission, and would even use our connections and to our salespeople to say, look, return the call to the Historical Commission because we'd like to try to get this done.
I have to say we have, in my house, we have 2 single units and a 2-head unit.
Yep.
The single head units are much more efficient than the 2-head units, the larger units. And we've never had a problem with them operating in the winter either. So.
And then on the historic, the other thing we asked of historic to help out with was policies on what to accept and not to accept. We've not heard anything sort of back on that front, have we?
No.
Is it about time for an update from them?
Mm-hmm.
That one of your questions, Peg?
No, but it's, I think it is, you know, I just don't want us to run out of time. I just don't want us to run into, oh yeah, I got this. And then it just
Right.
goes away. So maybe not next week, maybe the week after while you guys are doing your agenda, if you can bring them on back and give them specifics as to what we're looking for.
Oh yeah, we should do that now. Make sure that they're ready for an upcoming meeting.
Yep.
Okay. Did you want it, June?
Look at her. She's like, she's frozen.
I'm working on it.
She's working on it.
There is $3,215.81.
3,000
June,
what?
I'm sorry, 3,250.
3215.81.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say. Only kidding.
So you know, I don't know if the price of this thing has gone up, but I could have sworn it was $3,500 for the unit.
I think it was, but that was the price to have Assabet install it. And when you know, there'll be now labor potentially to have someone else install it because Assabet's not doing that type of work due to COVID. But I think you're going to be in the same ballpark because it's a single head. I believe the electricity is already on site for it. And so I'm hoping that it's not a super complicated thing. Yeah. But I'm gonna keep pushing it because again, getting the heat in that starts this domino of like cleaning out the room in the basement of town offices. It potentially takes some stuff out of Bullard House that makes it easier to stage and set up and do whatever construction work is necessary to get that so it is a usable building. And so it is going to be the thing I'm going to stay on until I think we can get this thing through.
Okay.
Excellent. The proposal on the smaller unit from Northborough Oil was $4,500.77.
Okay.
So let's see how much historical
Yep.
Might be able to help out. Okay. Any other questions, Scott?
Nope. That was my big thing for the day.
Peg,
that
were
I
you
didn't already ask.
Yeah, I just had 2. Mary, can you do me a favor because I can't screen share? Can you pop up the Halloween Fest brochure? Dankeschön. Dun, 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 Dankeschön. Quick, who sang it?
What is it again?
Dankeschön.
Oh gosh.
It's one of those
Come
Wayne
on.
Newton or.
There you go.
Or,
No, I think it was Wayne Newton. It was
Wayne
Wayne
Newton.
Newton on a I Love Lucy show. All right.
I don't know any of
So-
these things. I'm way too young to know who any of those people are.
Wow. Wow. Okay, Scott. So here's our latest version of the brochure. When, has the date, has that we're only going to do scarecrow and pumpkin display.
Right.
Just wanted to make sure that it's good. Liz Ford, thank you, Liz, shout out, woo, woo, is working with the school to find the person to get this approved and get it out, whether it goes electronically or it gets in a kid's backpack. I don't think it's going to go in a backpack. It'll probably go electronically. I see that Dave and the guys have put up the bleacher. I don't know if the scarecrow things are up yet. I haven't looked, but we can get those up. So is this good? Because I want to send it back around to everyone that I had originally sent the email on about, hey, what to do, here's what we're going, so that people can see it. Maybe we can print a copy, slap it on the door downstairs, the 1870. At the town hall, we can put one up at the general store, can throw some up at the dump, just to help get word out. I can take it and push it out onto Berlin Neighbors Connect and Berlin Residents Unite.
Wait a minute. I was going to show you one thing I would change.
Okay.
By the way, I asked John Campbell if the school would be willing to help distribute this to the students.
Isn't it going to be at the church, right? 24 Central Street.
Yeah, First Parish Church. Why? Where does it say it is?
You say
Oh,
Woodward
there it
Ave.
is. There it is. Okay.
Oh. Well, what is the address of the church?
24 Central.
Yeah, 24 Central.
All right. So,
Although you can't be on Woodward Ave and not find it, so.
Right.
True.
well, so do you just want me to get it instead of Woodward Ave? How about First Parish Church Lawn?
Yep.
Yeah, but also there's no mention of the church, and if they're being kind enough to give up the space, maybe saying the church and its real address.
All right.
Right.
All right. So I'll do First Parish Church.
And adults are allowed to enter, correct?
Yes.
So one thing I would change is down the bottom of the last paragraph, to be an honorary select board for a day. Select board member.
You can be a board.
I don't, because there's 3 chances. So be an honorary select board member for a day. That was the
And
only,
on that day, they can renegotiate a new Maplewood contract and deal with the
That is
drainage thing
correct.
that's up
This
on
will be-
Bell Hill Road.
I was going to say, does this apply to the adult entries too?
Absolutely.
remember, all they voted last year was to get free ice cream.
Yes, this is true.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Are you not 2 words, select board?
They are. That's what the bylaw says.
Yeah,
All right.
select board.
The bylaw would say if the Attorney General would sign off on it.
All right,
Next
I'll
week.
have
Next
her-
week. It's coming.
I will have her move a space between select and board and add member, and then instead of Woodward Ave, we put First Parish Church. Mary, what was the address? 23?
24 Central.
24 Central. Okay. Cool. All right.
Is there
so-
nothing at the 1870 lawn? It's all at the church, right?
Yeah, it's at the
Yeah.
church. Yep,
Okay.
it'll be, so the bleachers like in the front where the driveway is by the door, and then the stakes will be right along the road. Okay.
What are you going to be dressed as, Peg?
I don't know. I still have time. I don't know.
Underdog.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one fell apart, Margaret. So you know what? I'll gladly wear my Hong Kong Phooey shirt, but just saying. And then the last one, again, in Peg's push to get Berlin out there and show folks in the town what we're doing and what we're moving and shaking, I had sent around Monday, I don't know, Sunday, one of those days, just like a brief write-up, first draft. And again, I know that we can't go public. Margaret, we still don't have the go for the town barn grant, correct? Do we have the official notification?
Oh, yes. Yeah, Chris has signed on the Meta grant paperwork. Yes.
All right, cool. So what I want to
Speaking
do,
of Chris, excuse me, Chris, you need to sign 2 more things if you could stop in tomorrow at some point.
Okay.
the benefits consulting contract and something else. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay. So if you can let me know any edits that you have, I've reached out to Victoria for Council on Aging, and also reached out to Lisa for 1870. And while I was emailing Dave about the Sheriff's Department and whatever else I was supposed, the grant, you know, I think a paragraph from him on Bay State roads. Again, it shows what he's doing in the community, what opportunities. So again, the whole point is just to share with the town for those folks who may not come to the Zoom meeting, who may not watch the playback, who don't go fishing for information on the town website, and who might pick up the item, you know, just to say, wow, you know, the board really is doing something. And again, I don't intend it to be every week, you know, maybe every month, but you know, my hope is that if people see that we're moving and shaking and we're doing things to, you know, find money through the town for grants, or that we're putting things in place, maybe that will help them say, you know what, they're really not bad people. I'm going to volunteer my time. So there definitely is a method to my ever-growing madness. And that's all I got. Because Margaret answered all the rest of the questions I had.
Yay.
Boy.
Good.
Woo! All right. Well, then it looks like we could entertain a motion to adjourn.
See you, bye.
Yes. Second that.
Okay. Keith, aye.
Stone Eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Thanks all.